first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
And I know I say that every time. Hello and welcome to Fox 12 Now. We appreciate you being here, a part of the show. Of course, we're live streaming here every weekday starting at 1 p.m. and we are live. So I do want to just emphasize that. So we're on Facebook, YouTube, our website, and our apps, lots of places to find the show and join the conversations. But if you're a regular watcher, you know Thursdays at 1:30, almost every week, we are joined by this gentleman right here, Eric Goranson from Around the House Northwest. And Eric, great to have you on here. We were off last week, but here back with you there from your amazing studio that you've got at home. With I'm still take a look at everything in the background, and we need to do a show and tell, you know, more often of what's back there. But today, though, we're talking about something that I think with this nice weather that a lot of people are thinking about, and that is decks.
Man, thanks. It's always fun being on here. And yeah, outdoor living is absolutely huge. And this is that time of year where we all get to enjoy it. We've been cooped up all in the rain all winter long. And it's like, all right, time to get outside. And many of us go out and go, wow, we need a bigger deck or fix the old one that's there.
Yeah, that is certainly something that I think anybody is, whether you don't have one, you definitely want one, but there's always something that feels like to repair on those.
Yeah, there's so many things. And let's talk first about kind of the planning rules first. You know, it doesn't matter really if you're in Oregon or Washington, but generally speaking, if your deck is either 30 inches above the ground or higher, or if you've got a cover over it that's bigger than 200 square feet, sorry guys, it's drawings and permits time to do a deck. And you're going to have to go through the city, county, or whoever else you're working with there to make sure you do that correctly. And that way it's safe for you and your guests coming over there.
So, and again, that was 30, if it's more than 30 inches off the ground?
Yep, 30 inches is the magic number. And part of that is because at 30 inches, you're supposed to have a handrail. And so they want to make sure that, you don't build a handrail that doesn't meet code. Maybe you got 3 or 4 friends leaning on it, having their favorite beverage, and all of a sudden they're face down in the yard because they didn't build it right.
Gotcha. So that's when you need those permits. And also one other one there too, just to clarify that. So 200 square feet. So if you have a cover that's less than 200 square feet, you're okay?
You're good. Yeah. And actually in like in Oregon, for instance, you can, if you follow their rules, you can build a 200 a patio cover that's under 200 square feet. If you follow their drawings, if you follow that, you don't even have to pull a permit for that. But once you get over that magic number of 200, drawings and engineer time.
Okay, so make note of that, everybody, because definitely you don't want to get any fines on that, or have to tear something down, I would imagine, if you don't meet it.
Yeah, and what happens a lot of times is you'll go pull a permit for something nearby, or somebody will have to do something, and the inspector will come over and go, well, that's not on the plans, and that's when you get busted. Or
Gotcha.
or the pesky neighbor that maybe you didn't make best friends with, they're the other one that can also, touch off that hornet's nest, and then you've got a big problem.
Yeah, be nice to your neighbors. Make friends with them. All right, so those are some good things for starting off there. Some good things to know. What else should people know?
I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is where they connect that deck and that ledger board to the house itself. And that's one of the biggest places of deck failures. And so there's 2 things you really got to consider there. One is there's a ton of flashing work that needs to be done there to make sure if water's hitting it, that it goes around and not behind it, between that, framing and the house, because then you're going to rot that out. And then you get some people on the deck and it falls off the house and you make the news because people get hurt when that happens. So there's a flexible flashing you need to put on there. And there's also a metal flashing you need to do on the top of that, just so that you're directing that moisture away. And outside of that, the second part of that is making sure that ledger board, which holds the framing to the house, that is actually screwed in with big lag bolts or structural screws into the framing of the house. And so if you look up there and see nails, for instance, on your old deck, time to get everybody off of it and go through and put the screws in the right spot, because those nails will pull right out. And so that's where you want to use structural fasteners that are rated for that application.
And those are all some of those little things too that maybe people just don't think about, I would imagine, as far as like the flashing and making sure that that's not rotting out there next to that.
It is probably the #1 place of deck failures out there with that, because it just, especially in our weather, we get the, never dries out back there for 6 months out of the year if you've got water going in the wrong spots. And then you just have this really soft, wood that's ended up rotting away. and then you get a bunch of people over there for the holiday party or whatever else, and it's pulling off the house, and you got a problem. You're going to hurt people even if you're 2 feet off the ground. So that's the thing. You just want to make sure that all it takes is one little accident. So even if you're not building a deck right now, it's a good time of the year to go out and inspect it to make sure it looks good. And you can jump online. There's so many deck inspection forms out there. If you just Google that, there's a bunch of 3, 4, 5-page documents that go around and tell you exactly where to look. And that way you know you're safe.
All right. So all very good tips for everybody who's looking to do this. What else should people know?
You know, there's a lot of technology that's been changing on decks out there as you're building them. So for instance, what you're seeing a lot more of is when you're framing that deck, you'll get it all built up, and they're starting to put what they call joist tape on the top of all the wood that's the framing down below before you put the cedar or the composite deck boards down. So it's actually like a black tape that's a butyl tape that goes on there. And what that does is it gives you added lifespan to the wood below, because so many times now you're putting on that beautiful composite deck that might have a 20, 30, even 40-year lifespan with a warranty that goes that far. The problem is the framing down below, if it's wood, even if it's treated, might only last 15 years if it's not well maintained. So you want to try to get that so it catches up, so you don't have to take those deck boards off and on and reframe the deck and do it all over again. So little steps like that as far as the flashings, and of course that joist tape makes a huge difference.
Yeah, especially down the road. I mean, you don't want to have to deal with that. You know, it may seem like that's way far out, but that's something that could sneak up on you and then have to deal with it at that point. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I've noticed on decks that I've done when I haven't used it in the past that with today's pressure treated wood, 4 or 5 years, you start to notice that breaking down already. So it goes pretty quick, especially, in the Pacific Northwest.
All right. Well, this is all good advice for anybody out there thinking about these decks. Anything else that they should know, or should we talk about?
Yeah, a couple other tips too. If you're looking at staining decks, stain lasts on cedar. I haven't found, we actually do some tests in this week's episode. We'll talk about that in a minute. But with deck stains out there, you might only get a couple years out of it. So when you're trying to figure out what's, your cost versus value on putting composite versus wood, just put in there every couple of years of having to sand down and restain that deck again. And all of a sudden, even though the composite's a little more expensive than the cedar, starts to pretty even well out after 5 or 6 years. And you go, okay, if I have to restain this and all the time doing this every 2 years, those numbers start to get really equal. And if you want to spend a little bit more when you're framing it, there's new programs out there where you can get steel framing that just bolts together, and then you can do the composite over the top of that. Then you have to worry about that thing for decades.
I love that idea. Yeah, steel framing and just have that in there and then just layer it on top of that. That sounds like a good way to go.
Well, you never have a warped board with steel like that. So you can literally bolt it together, fastens right together, and it's a really quick way to do a deck frame. And it's not going to rot away on you because it's all powder coated and pretty.
Nice. All right. So great advice. Anything else for it?
Just, safety's key on this stuff. So just make sure that you're building it right. There's a lot of great deck planners online that you can go onto, like Simpson Strong Tie has one, for instance, where you can jump on there and use their free deck planner. And it'll actually give you the plans and tell you how to build it. And then they use their structural fasteners and stuff and tell you how to build it right. So it's a great, safe way to go because they're not going to lead you wrong on how to build it. And then you've got a basic set of plans to follow.
All right. So plan this out well before starting it. Make sure you have all of your permits if you do have to get a permit, or know whether or not you have to get one, because you don't want to get busted on that. And then go through all of those steps and make sure that this thing's going to last for a while. So great advice.
Spending a ton of money on it, you want it to last around for a while. Nobody likes having to do things twice.
No, and if you're building one, you're going to be using it a lot, ideally. So yeah, you don't want something going wrong on that. You don't have to deal with that in a few years of changing that out. So great advice. So everybody who's watching this too, feel free to share this segment and talk to anybody else that you know who's working on a deck. But we also have Around the House Northwest, a new episode, as always, with a million segments in each episode, and we get to preview a couple of them here. What do you want to talk about for this one?
Well, our Perform Like a Pro, we are actually starting to get into some earthquake prep. We actually install, with my friends over at Earthquake Tech, we install one of the natural gas automatic earthquake shutoff valves. And so if the building shakes, it turns the gas off automatically. And that way, if a gas line breaks inside the house, it's just not an issue.
That is really good to know. And we've been covering a lot of stuff just here at the station as far as earthquake drills. I know there were some big ones over at the coast. And yeah, everybody's thinking about that a little bit more. And shutting off the gas would be huge if you're stuck in the middle of one. You don't want that leaking. Plus, who knows when somebody's going to be able to get out to help you with that too, if there is a giant earthquake.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be able to shut it off right at the meter, and then you're good to go. And you can always go back and reset it once you've inspected your system to make sure there wasn't any damage. But if you had a big enough earthquake to set it off, you got to really go through and test it to make sure you don't have any leaks, because that would kind of defy the whole purpose of it, right?
Yeah, definitely. So that's a great segment. Looking forward to that one. What else we got?
I teased a little earlier, but we have, I went out and got 5 different name brand deck stains, and I put it through a test and then simulated to see as best I could. I didn't put it outside for a year or anything like that and walk on it, but we kind of made up some simulations to see how it would hold up in our weather. Some of the popular names that I think everybody knows, one of them just failed completely badly. Some other ones didn't get touched. So I know I tested enough when at least I have one finish fail, and we followed the directions on each can and made sure that we did it fairly even on the same board of wood. So we kind of knew that we had everything as equal as we could get it. But yeah, one of them failed really quickly, and I was surprised.
So that is something that I know a lot of people debate on as far as what to get. So that's great that you tested each one of them out, and I'm really curious which one failed. So that's another segment right there. Do you want to talk about anything else or save the rest of it?
Yeah, we do test it on a brand new barbecue grill that was really cool from Monument Grill. That was fun. And then we've got so many other little things that we're doing in there. We have a great discussion with Little Giant Ladders. Those guys that invented the fold-up ladder, And so we go through and chat with them on some of the new features they have out there as far as stuff that just makes the job easier when you're tackling projects. Like, they've got ladders that now you can lean up against the house, and there's a ratchet leg that'll level it out for you. So if you're on uneven ground, you're not out there stacking 2x4s or buckets or anything else out there trying to get the ladder safe on a hillside.
I love that. I've got, actually, it might be their brand of ladder that I have at home, but whatever the new stuff is, because I'm not very good about that. I'll put it on the most uneven ground ever. And that sounds like that would help out a lot.
Yeah, it's super cool. They make some great stuff. And anytime that, and they've got some stuff there that you can, have one ladder on the house. It'll do the job of 4 or 5. So makes it a little easier to store stuff as well.
Definitely worth it. Anything else, or should we tell people when and where and how they can watch?
Let's do where they can watch. And if they missed last week's show, I did a fun one last week. You and I didn't talk about it, but
yeah,
last week's show that airs tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. on Fox 12 Plus. I found a brand new innovative gas log fireplace system. So if you got that old gas log set in there and you're having to manually start it, we put a brand new one in at my house. It just basically bolts right in place. And they designed it so the fire comes out through the logs instead of just that burner down below. So it looks like a real fire, which is really cool. It's a whole new thing. And then it has remote control, no power needed. Just throw some batteries in it, you're off to go. So you could totally upgrade that thing without having to trash the whole fireplace.
Nice. I love that. And yeah, anything that you can change out easy without having to do too much remodeling. Yeah, that's really cool. So that's on last week's episode, which is airing tomorrow.
Exactly. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Fox 12 Plus. And the stuff we were just talking about, this brand new 10 a.m. on Saturday, Fox 12 Plus, as well as the replay at 6 p.m. on Sunday.
All right. So everybody go check that out. And of course, we've got the segments too on the Fox 12 Oregon app or on the Fox 12 Oregon YouTube page or the website, kptv.com. You can go check those out. There are literally hundreds of segments.
I think we're 400 this weekend. Yeah. So
400 this weekend. Yeah. So that's a lot to go through, but certainly anything that you're thinking about, I bet if you Google it on there or take a look through it and search, you'll find something that covers pretty close to what you're looking for. So that's awesome. Well, Eric, it's always so good to have you on here, and good to be back and doing these. So looking forward to next week. And for everybody tuning in, again, this is Fox 12 Now. We live stream here every weekday, and we have lots of stuff throughout the afternoon. Coming up at 2 p.m. today, if you're watching live, we're going to be talking about our trip out to Mid-Valley clay shooting. And we're going to talk about some gun safety. We're going to show you what some of the clay shooting looks like. So we've got that for you here at 2. So just tune back in on whatever platform you're watching on, and we will be there at 2. But we'll sign off right now. Eric, thanks. And we'll talk to everybody soon. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.